Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session at Microsoft Build. So today we are going to talk about democratizing your data at scale with Power BI, and this is the Ask the Expert session. So really quickly into the agenda in terms of, so we're going to talk about what to expect. We'll do a quick introduction to the team that we have over here. We'll open up for Q&As for the audience, so keep your questions coming, and then we'll close with some more information, on data marts and where to go next. So in terms of just the engagement pieces, so please use the Q&A box to ask any questions that you are going to post for the speakers as well as the experts on the session. Your questions, they will appear once they are approved, and we will be constantly monitoring the incoming queue, so we'll keep approving your questions and you'll all see it. And once the questions are taken up, and we will route them to the experts, and you will have the questions answered by the experts over the camera as well as the session. In terms of the overall session details, we will be recording the sessions. Please help our moderators. Make sure you're not, putting in content which are not relevant for the Q&A pieces, and please adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct. Really quick, here's the Microsoft Code of Conduct. Really quickly, meet the team of experts that we have over here today. I'll be your host and moderator for the session. My name is GB. And we also have over here with us as the on-camera experts, Darini, Charles, and Priyanka. Also supporting us today will be our off-camera experts. So Anita, Yahil, Srinivasan, Marek, Catalin, as well as Priya, they will be helping answer the questions over chat and the Q&A that you'll see. So with that, let's do a quick overview of the theme of the session today. Democratize your data at scale with Power BI and how we can achieve that with Power BI self-service data marts. I anticipate many of you have attended the previous session that was hosted by Arun and Priya, where they announced and talk about Power BI data marts. If in case you missed the session, you can always go back and watch the session recording over there. So this slide over here, it provides a quick overview of data marts and features. I won't go through the entire list, but at a super high level, Power BI data marts, they help bridge the gap between the business users and IT. Data marts are a self-service analytic solution enabling users to store and explore data that is loaded into a fully managed database. Data marts provide a simple no-code experience to ingest data from various data sources, to extract, transform, and load the data using Power Query into an Azure SQL DB that is fully managed and requires no performance tuning or optimization. So, long story short, data marts, what they really are is they are available as part of your Power BI Premium Gen 2 subscription, and both PPC as well as PPUs workspaces will have access to self-service data marts. You can use all the low-code experiences to go build, create, manage your data marts, as well as they come fully integrated into our Power BI. And they come with all the admin and security features and more that are, shipped as part of our Power BI experience. So with that, let's get into the Q&A pieces. So I see the first question that I see is, I apologize, it's taking its time to load. I manage a team of data engineers and analytical engineers. We're the technical team that builds data warehouses, data lakes, and tabular models of Power BI datasets. How does Power BI data marts fit into our world? Charles, do you want to take up that question?
Sure. So one of the opportunities that your organization will have with self-service data marts is to empower your business users and your analysts to be able to build the solutions that they need really fast, but still giving you the ability to govern and work with them in a tool like SQL.
Awesome.
Building on what Charles just said, I think, as we add more capabilities, you'll also be able to sort of like endorse the data marts that have been created by your self-service analysts so that you can actually certify and make sure that that is being used more widely as you see fit. So that way you have an ability to kind of like govern that as well using promotion and certification.
Thank you. There is another question, which is, how are data marts enabling relational database analytics? Dharini, do you want to take up that question?
Sure. So, because of, allowing you guys to actually quickly, easily go and provision a SQL database that can be created in minutes without any, tuning needed in a frictionless code-based, no code experience, you can now go and, access this both outside of Power BI using SQL client tools like SSMS, Azure Data Studio, but also within the Data Mart editor itself, you have a no-code experience for users who are not familiar with SQL to actually use a visual experience to go and query the data. So in addition, we also provide a SQL query editor, all integrated within the same Data Mart editor experience. And this is how we actually enable you for ad hoc analysis beyond the reporting use case that you're already familiar with and use Power BI for.
Awesome. We have one more question. Is the 100 GB database size limit per capacity or per data mart? Does this database auto scale vCourse as needed for performance? Priyanka, do you want to take up that question?
Sure. So 100 GB database, 100 GB capacity is per database level. As data mart querying size increases, the auto scale will also trigger in. But for now, it is it is not in place, and auto scale will come in future. It is in our backlog.
Awesome. Thank you, Priyanka. So there is another question which is interesting. So can we use the tables of a data mart as a source for a regular import dataset? Can we then use SQL Profiler to check if queries are folding? Charles, do you want to take up the question?
Yeah, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Let me scroll. So the question is, can we use the tables of a data mart as a source for a regular import dataset? Can we then use SQL Profiler to check if queries are folding?
So yes, you should be able to. You should be able to do both. You should be able to first definitely connect to the SQL tables of a data mart in just import mode. And then secondarily, when you're using Power Query, let's say in Power BI Desktop, you should be able to check and ensure you're getting that query folding. You can do that certainly from one place inside of just Power BI Desktop itself, but then if you connect SSMS or SQL Profiler, you should be able to see those queries as well.
Makes sense. So somewhat related, Charles, there's another question. How do you see data marts being used versus the traditional architecture of Dataflows, shared data sets, a single data mart per subject area department that supports several other local data models with specific tables measures via DQ over PBI data sets, or multiple data marts, each with their own data set for different use cases? Sorry, that was a loaded question.
Yeah, so the way I see it is that data marts give you an opportunity to think really critically about that type of architecture and provide users with a simpler interface with data marts to be able to serve all those different types of use cases. So whether you wanted to continue to use, let's say, Dataflows to load data into the data mart, that's definitely something that is a great use case. But then secondarily, when you want to build shared data sets, data marts provide an auto-generated data set, and then you can build composite or proxy models off of that. So in some sense, this data mart gives you this ability to centralize all your business logic in a single place. And then lastly, because we are powering it with a SQL endpoint, this provides the ability for you to build a ton of other business use cases from a central source of the truth. So with a SQL endpoint, you have your open data, you can build all the data sets you'd like, you can load it from a data flow, but you now have this single source of truth and this simple artifact to say, this is where you want to go and build analytic solutions as your starting place.
Thank you, Charles. Dharini, I will route this question to you. So is there a Power BI Data Mart connector in Power BI Desktop? And could you also talk about the connectivity options with the Data Mart that we have?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in two ways. So today you can actually go and use the Azure SQL connector. So you would be able to go to the Data Mart settings page and then find the SQL connection string. Use that in Power BI Desktop to actually go and connect it today to start connecting to your data marts and start building, data sets or reports. Now, in the future, we are actually planning to, make this available within Data Hub. So the Data Sets Hub is evolving into a Data Hub inside the Power BI Desktop from the June release. And so you'll start seeing the data marts show up, and you can actually connect to the data mart, which will allow you to connect to the auto-generated data set. And in the future, we want to provide both options to connect to either the SQL endpoint or to the auto-generated data set, so that you can choose to either go and directly build reports, or you can go build your data sets first and then build your reports.
Thank you, Dharani. So there's another question. In layman terms, what role do the new data marts serve that is not currently filled by datasets or data flows, other than the T-SQL endpoint? Or what's the long-term goal for these? Charles, do you want to take this question? And Dharani, feel free to tag on afterwards.
So data marts unlock, with the power of SQL, a new type of analysis that you can do inside of Power BI, and this is ad hoc analysis. So today, as you mentioned, you have T-SQL, but you also, starting today, right, have this visual query editor, and this is going to allow you to build queries to answer your business questions very simply. You don't need to, understand how to use DAX. You can kind of build these things iteratively. We have some experiences planned to make that more impactful, more visual, and more exciting coming in the future. So really, SQL unlocks a ton of new experiences, but one of the big things is ad hoc analysis gets a lot easier inside of Marts.
Adding to what Charles mentioned, we've heard from customers that today it's actually challenging. Once you prep all this data and then load that into the data lake, it's so hard for both analysts and business users to actually go and query the data. So now with this whole, data mart editor, you can actually, query it inside or using SSMS and other tools. So it certainly opens up new use cases so that users can actually make data-driven decisions without having to go and then build either a data set and then a report and then actually answer that question as well. The other thing that you also get now is you actually have all of this in, just the web authoring experience. So if we did not provide the ability to actually automatically generate this data set, then you will have to go and connect to this data mart, go build the data set, and you have to switch between the Power BI service and the desktop, which is a lot of hassle. So we try to actually remove all this and make it so optimized so that with this one experience, you have a data flow that's actually loading this data into a database. You have the database that can actually be queried and consumed. And at the same time, it's also optimized for reporting so that you have this auto-generated data set that's connected to the, the data mart, and we keep that in sync, and you don't have to worry about the refresh schedules and so on. And so we make it super optimized for you to enable both, your reporting and ad hoc analysis use cases.
Thank you, Dharani. So the next question I see, so it's will the RLS editor allow writing DAX expressions in order to implement dynamic RLS? Charles, do you want to take up the question?
Yeah, so currently we don't support that, but that is something that is on our backlog. So definitely go vote for that one on ideas at powerbi.com.
There's another similar question, Charles. So will it be allowed to use external tools to edit the data marts like Tabular Editor 3?
Yep, this is another one that's on our backlog, and I would say on our roadmap. It's something where we want to support the ability for users to write SQL directly inside of there to create objects, store procedures, functions, etc. And obviously with a data mart, we also generate a data set. So the other thing we've heard feedback from you all about is, hey, we want to be able to use Tabular Editor to edit that AS model. So those are both two things that we're evaluating for the future.
Got it. So similar to the question that was asked before around data marts and data flows and data sets, Charles, there is a question for the use case of a shared self-service enterprise Power enterprise BI dataset, does it make sense to always use a data mart going forward? Is there a case where you would recommend the typical Dataflow workflow for enterprise BI shared dataset, or would the best practice be to move to data marts for all shared dataset use cases? You want to take it, Charles?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I would say, data marts provide a ton of capability when you want to have unified analytics, but things like data flows, things like data sets from a use case specific perspective still make a ton of sense. So I can talk to you a little bit about complementing roles between data marts, and first we'll talk about data flows. So from a data flows perspective, data flows are really great to load data marts with data coming from different data sources when you need different refresh schedules. So refresh schedules is one area where if you have this requirement, you have multiple sources, different refresh schedules, makes a ton of sense. The next one is when you want to separate your ETL and all that business logic and data prep steps from your storage so that you want to reuse that for, let's say, data sets and or data marts. And that leads me into the data sets and why those are super complementary as well as very use case specific. So when you want to, let's say, standardize business measures, but they're really complex, and let's say you need tabular editor, or let's say you want the full power of Power BI desktop, data sets make a ton of sense. But data sets also super complement data marts. Everything from composite models to proxy models, to just being able to use and work with that auto-generated data set that we get you started with. There's a ton of synergy between all these artifacts. I would say data marts are a unified artifact, and it's something that can simplify what you're trying to do from an end-to-end perspective. And it provides you with a SQL endpoint for open data. But when you have use case specific things for ETL and data prep, or for metrics and semantic layer BI reporting, data sets are a great fit.
Thank you. So there's another question. With data marts being direct query connection to dataset, are the same DAX limitations such as time intelligence and there be updates to direct query, or will import feature be coming? Charles, you want to take it?
Yeah, I'll take that. So yes, the auto-generated data set is in direct query initially, but we do have a feature in our backlog to improve that performance with a feature where we will manage the import for you so that you don't have to worry about it, and then opportunistically and very aggressively get the data in import mode. So this will solve two things. One, it'll give you the full power of the Vertipack engine, but then secondarily, it'll make a lot of your more complex reporting needs much easier.
Got it. Thank you. Here's one question for you. Can you talk about ad hoc analysis and mention SQL? What about ad hoc visual analysis? If there is visual stuff, does that happen in some kind of data mart UI, or am I still using Power BI? If visual stuff with the data mart UI, do you think we need it?
Okay, so within the data mart experience, you have a data grid view, and then right next to it, you actually have like a design tab. These are view switcher modes at the bottom left of your data mart UI, and you would be able to actually toggle to your visual query editor. So what we're doing here is we're using Power Query, but for a different use case. We're trying to actually make sure that you can continue to use an experience that you're very familiar with, but you can use that to now go and query the data and get ad hoc analysis. So it'll display the same results preview just like you've seen within Power Query. So as far as your question about do you think we need it? If you have users in your organization who want to actually use this data, query the data, but then they're not familiar with T-SQL and they would love to actually get this, I think then you need it. But if you are comfortable with T-SQL, then you can go ahead and use either the SQL query editor or use that from your familiar tools like SSMS or Azure Data Studio to go query the data.
Got it. Thank you. So the next question is, so let me go through this. Okay, so with the 100 GB limit, how are we advised when data is approaching and or breaching this? Charles, Priyanka, do you guys want to take it?
Yep, I can take it. So 100 GB limit is what we are recommending currently. It is not an enforced limit. So you can build your data mart with a higher data size as well. But the performance that you get with the 100 GB is the optimal for our current recommendation.
Anything else you want to add to that, Charles? Good.
Yep, she hit it on the head. That's exactly right.
Thank you. So going to the question, so there are a lot of questions around, do we need premium per capacity to build a data mart? Is it possible with a premium per user license? Dhirani, do you want to take up that question both from a creator as well as from a consumer perspective?
Sure. So in order to actually go and create a data mart, you do need either premium per capacity or premium per user subscription. But let's say that a creator has actually created a data mart and is actually sharing it for downstream consumption so that users can go and either query the data or build reports on top of the data. Then you can just have like a pro license or premium per user, anything to start off to actually start consuming that on the consumption side.
Got it. Priyanka, here's a question for you. Will Synapse database templates be available to Power BI data marts? I think in general, like database templates, will they be available for Power BI data marts?
That's a great question, actually. We would love to hear feedback and get inputs on that. So definitely reach out to us and we'll get back to you on that question.
Awesome. You heard it from Priyanka. All right, so moving on. So Dhirani, here's one question. Dataflows were designed to integrate with the Dataverse, need Dataflex Pro, need common data services for analysis. Is Data Marts integrating with Dataverse and open for integration with the rest of the Power Platform product set?
Got it. So Dataverse actually is more suitable for OLTP. So it's our backbone for fueling, Power Apps for our CRM, and as a result, like it's more optimized for those workloads. What we are doing with Data Marts is for analytical workloads. So to your question on is it integrated with Dataverse? If you want to actually, bring in the data from Dataverse in order to do analytics on top of it, you do have, Dataverse as a connector in the get data option as you go through the Data Marts experience. And so you would be able to use Power Query to bring that data and then start using it for analytics. If you are looking for, something else, would love to learn more about what your use case is and go from there.
Got it. Thank you. There is one more question. This is regarding Power Query Online. I think so. Dhirani, maybe you can take this. How to use Power Query Online? Is the Power Query Online release stopped by the Data Mart release in Power BI?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So when you are asking how do you use Power Query Online, today Power Query Online is available within Dataflows, and this is within Power BI, within Power Apps, within Dataverse. So they integrate in like a lot of products today. And just like it's integrated today within other products, Power Query is also what we are using for our ETL flow within Data Marts, so that you can use the get data experience. You can go connect to these, 150 plus connectors that are available, and then go and bring in the data, load that data into, Azure SQL here, which is what we use in the backend to power the Data Mart. So we'll continue to use Power Query, and if you have an existing data flow, go ahead and use the Dataflows connector to bring in the data into the Data Mart as well.
Awesome. Thank you. There's one more question. This has, I believe, more to do with the roadmap, but I'd like to be able to use T-SQL instead of M or Power Query to transform and clean source data. Will Data Mart support that use case? Dhirani, you want to take it?
Sure. So as Charles mentioned before, one of the things that we are also tracking in our backlog to support incrementally is the ability for you to use T-SQL directly to go create your tables, or, in this case, you're probably thinking of either a stored procedure to actually do your transformations instead of using, the Power Query experience or M for that. So it's something that's actually in our backlog. Go ahead and add this to ideas.powerbi.com and upload it so that we can actually, continue to focus on that. And we are actively looking at it.
Awesome, thank you. So moving on, let me see. As a PBI report dev, can I use composite model functionality to say, bring in tables from a data mart, supplement with DQ over, say, Snowflake, and bring in data sources from elsewhere? Like, is data mart just another data source as far as a report dev is concerned? Charles, do you want to take it? Or Dharini, do you want to take it?
Sure. Data Marts is a data source that you can actually connect to, and composite models will continue to work when you connect to Data Marts as well.
Got it. Will it be allowed to use external tools to edit the data marts? I think we already answered that question. Let me go back to the new questions. Sorry, the page refresh is. I recently tried using sensory labels in Power BI, but exported artifacts with the internal label. I think that's a support question. By the Dataverse questions using Power BI apps, can you create or write back capability? Bit hacky, but with a SQL backend by DMRs. I can see this opportunity for leveraging this. Charles, do you want to take that question? I think we lost Charles. Maybe he's having some network problems. Dharini or Priyanka, do you guys want to take up that question, or we can publish it in the chat for the off-camera experts to address?
Sorry, GB, is this the sensitivity labels question, or is this a different one? Can you repeat it?
I recently tried using sensory labels in Power BI, but exported artifacts with the internal label applied can still be opened by non-authorized users and users outside the org.
Okay,
sorry,
that to me seems like an issue that we should actually work with our friends in the ILDC team. So please do, follow up with this issue and let's actually have a thread with them. But in the context of data marts, you can set sensitivity labels on data marts, and it does get applied to your auto-generated data set or any data sets that you build on top of it, the reports, dashboards, downstream artifacts. Similarly, like if you try to use and analyze in Excel or open in Excel, that also will continue to inherit the sensitivity labels. And we are also applying this to the Azure SQL database or the data mart itself, where we are using SQL classification on these columns.
Thank you. There's another question during the session. The speaker mentioned that a data mart creates a data flow on the backend. Does that data flow benefit from the per features data flows being bring? Example, ADLV to Azure Compute. Dharini, can you take that question?
So I heard the implicit data flow, but can you repeat the last part of it?
Yeah, so I think the question is around, does the data flow benefit from the per features data, or I think the question is, does the data mart benefit from the per features data marts bring?
Okay, so we're continuing to actually use data flows, and this data flow is implicit, and we are, it won't be surfaced to the customer. But in terms of performance, we'll continue to use all the performance optimizations that are being done on the data flow itself. As far as the performance of the data mart is concerned, Charles did talk about like proactive caching as a way for us to actually make sure that we are trying to switch between direct query versus import so that you can actually take advantage of the in-memory, Wordpack engine and provide that performance to you as you try to actually build reports on top of data marts.
Got it. So the next question is, does direct query mode for data marts mean it connects live to each underlying source? Is there a lag between those underlying sources and the data getting moved into the data marts or MySQL database? Dharini, do you want to take up that question?
So direct query mode here means that it does connect to the underlying source. So in order to reduce, so today it's going to be just direct query, but we are working on proactive caching. And so this is kind of like transparent. You don't have to actually apply any setting, but you will see performance optimization and reduce that lag, as we roll out that feature, which we are actively working on.
Got it. Question, both for maybe Priyanka and Dharini. Will Datamart support Purview data owner access policies?
I can take that question. So this is in our backlog, but currently governance is provided through the Power BI capabilities. So you can see the lineage view, you can see the impact analysis, and also importantly, you can get the RLS security on the data mart. So you can govern your data, who can have access to the respective rows, and you can filter that, provide those respective access by assigning users to the specific roles. So definitely for the Purview integration, we will have that in our backlog, but Power BI and governance capabilities are currently supported on Datamart.
Got it. Thank you. I think with that, I see there are questions around capacity, which we already answered. I do not see data marts. So there are questions around, hey, why it's not enabled. So we answered those questions. Any other questions? We're also over time. So unless there are more questions, happy to wrap up the session. Thank you so much, everyone. Going back to the content, and we'll keep monitoring the questions if in case you can stay beyond the time. But really quickly, thank you so much. Appreciate your time today for spending and asking the questions. If you want more info, you can always go back and watch the recording of the Democratize Your Data at Scale with Power BI session that Arun and Priya delivered. Lots of great information there. Also, we have a roundtable that follows right after the session. So please join us there, and there'll be more opportunity to engage with questions and any inquiries that you have around data marts. There's a link to our Datamart documentation, aka.ms Datamart docs. Please go and you can go there to learn more about Datamarts, and please give us your feedback about the session on aka.ms Microsoft Build events. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks.